Hi, this is Susanna and James Forbes of Little Pomona Orchard and Cidery. We're based in Herefordshire, and you are listening to Cider Chat.
And this is episode 181. Hello and welcome to Cider Chat. My name is Aria Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world. This week, it's a pre-recorded chat from CiderCon 2019 with the folks at Little Pomona, Susanna and James Forbes. We'll be talking about their updates at their UK cidery and Susanna's new book hitting the US shores now this May called The Cider Insider. More on that, but first a little wee bit of news out and about in Ciderville.
Hi, this is Al Sachs. Last year I was able to go on the Normandy cider tour with Ria. Man, that was so much fun. It was really one of the best trips that I've ever taken, and I like to travel. Mostly I travel with my wife or by myself, and I don't go on group trips, but this was so much fun. Ria has just this wonderful network of friends and contacts throughout Normandy that she's curated for the last bunch of years, and we were able to take full advantage of that. Starting off in Paris, I'd never been to Paris before. I've never been into France before, and it was just a great way to start, seeing the Eiffel Tower at night and floating by Notre Dame on the Seine. And then getting on the bus the next day and going out into the countryside to the northeast and into Normandy, seeing the architecture change, the landscape changes, and you start seeing the apples. They're everywhere. Really, really exciting. If you like apples, if you like pear, if you like cider, the cheeses, you got to go on this tour. We really bonded as a group too over time, and I don't usually do bus tours. I sort of think of them as like, oh, that's what my old aunt and uncle do. They go go see the Amish, or go see the Follies. But no, this is entirely different. But without Ria and having her contacts, you would never find these places. You could never reenact this thing. I've done cider touring myself, and there's one thing about dropping in on somebody, but it's another thing when they're ready to welcome you with open arms and with an open tasting room. So we tasted things that I will never have the pleasure of tasting again. I brought home a bunch of wonderful, delicious French products, and I'm dying to go back. But the thing I thought, and the reason I jumped on the first tour was I figured, this may not always happen. This may be a one-off. So I'm going to make sure I don't feel like, gosh, I should have gone when I could. Because this isn't the most common tour you can find in the world. I mean, if you look out at there, sure, you can go to Oktoberfest, or you can go tour the wine regions and this, that, and the other. But I know of no other cider tour like this. So I would encourage you to just take out that eraser, erase everything off of your calendar for the end of September, and go to France. Join Ria on the cider tour of Normandy. You will be so happy you did.
That sure was nice of Al to do a public service announcement encouraging you to sign up for a tour that he took last year, don't you think? I think that kind of speaks volumes of the impact that it made. And I have a feeling that everybody on last year's tour would really like to come on this year's tour. Of course, because it is that epic. There's nothing like this in the world. And I'm hoping I'll be able to do it again, but to be honest, I don't really know if I will. I really don't. So this is the time to sign up now. Last call for this tour is May 31st. This podcast goes out on the 22nd. So that's 9 days from this podcast launching. So I hope you're hearing this in time and you're not saying, oh, I wish I signed up when I could have. Because for the value, I know there's nothing else like it. There isn't. Just that, period. That's it, the end. If you have queries, if you're like, Rhea, I'm really trying to figure it out, you got to let me know. Last call, May 31st. Send those emails to Rhea@ciderchat.com or go to the Totally Cider page at ciderchat.com. You'll find a secure link there to book your reservations now for the September 22nd through 28th tour to Normandy, France. Next up is our chat with both Susanna and James Forbes of Little Pomona, which is in the UK. It's actually in Herefordshire, that region out in the West Country. It's west of London, and it is so renowned for cider. There is some fantastic cider makers there. In fact, last week we had Simon Day of Once Upon a Tree. You got to listen to that episode. That was also recorded at CiderCon 2019. He's in that little hub. Ross on Wye, those folks are in that little hub there. They're patrons of Cider Chat. Fantastic people, really doing some good stuff. They're going to have the Ross and Cider Fest coming up in the last week of August. Can't wait to get to that at some point in my schedule. You know I want to go to that. Of course, Tom Oliver. The list goes on and on. I could spend like a whole episode just like reading off the names of all the fantastic people there in that one section of the UK. Of course, there's many others, but this one section is really spectacular. But you don't have to worry about that because there's a couple things going on here. One is Susanna just wrote a book. It's called The Cider Insider, and the subtitle is The Essential Guide to 100 Craft Ciders to Drink Now. I love that subtitle, by the way, Susanna, because I use that same subtitle in the book that I wrote, not on cider necessarily, but I did. I wrote a book called Leading Chaos, The Essential Guide to Conflict Management. And, that is a truthful statement here because you could count on a book that is written by this author. You could count on it because she has been around the map and then some. She's been judging cider. She's been writing about it. So it's not boring reading and she has the connections. There's a lot going on there. So I knew that they were coming to CiderCon and to Chicago. I wanted to talk to them to find out about this book. Last year when I was in Baltimore at CiderCon 2018, I already had recorded a podcast with them, and I'll put a link in the show notes. It's episode 126. So we got to know a little bit about Little Pomona then. But there is something about the opportunity to meet up with kindred spirits, people who are really promoting cider, not just for their own brand, but doing it for so many other people. James is the chairperson for the 3 counties Cider and Perry Association in Herefordshire. So they're doing more than just working in their own orchard. And if you are a commercial maker, that takes a lot of time right there. Especially Susanna in the work that she's done has really pushed her out in the world, showcasing so many folks. And I find that pretty relatable. And I really wanted then to, showcase Susanna and Little Pomona because I think these folks are just so instrumental for cider worldwide. And on top of it, there's a big piece to this in that you could get a free copy of this book in this short window of time, and it's going to be essentially a Twitter giveaway in that once this podcast goes live, and if you're listening to it, it's live, of course. It's going live on the 22nd of May, and you have from that day, that Wednesday, to the following Tuesday, which is the 28th of May, to follow along and retweet a tweet that will be going out once a day with the hashtag The Cider and Cider, coming out from @CiderChat on Twitter, which is my feed, or Susanna's feed, which is @DrinkBritain on Twitter. And you see that, and you see hashtag retweet, and you retweet that, you get your name into the running to get picked out of the hat after this giveaway ends on the 28th to get your own free signed copy of this book. So you got everything to gain there once again and nothing to lose by doing that, except getting in on the fun. There's another part here in that this book was not available in the USA until this May. It just got released this May out into the world. And that's big news. So much so that Newsweek magazine, for those Americans out there, North Americans out there, Newsweek magazine just posted an article that she wrote listing ciders that she recommended here in the U.S. That's kind of a big deal. I mean, for any of us who have grown up with like Newsweek in the doctor's office, seeing something like that written about cider, that's a big deal. So her writing is pretty well respected. I can't say enough about it. And there's a reason why, because she is an amazing person, as is James. So let's head to this chat. You're going to be taken into this kind of, kind of cozy experience where they just walked into the room and we're a little head over heels, at least I am, in seeing them super stoked and talking right straight away about the cider and cider. Let's head to this chat once again and grab a glass and raise it high to Susanna Forbes and James Forbes of Little Pomona, and Susanna, the author of The Cider and Cider, the essential guide to 100 craft ciders to drink now. You've had so much going on like this past year. Your book, which is just incredible.
This is a special one for you. I know you have kindly already, but maybe you'll find someone else.
Oh
maybe
my
the nose, or maybe Mr. Palm, or someone
Mr.
else.
Palm, Mr. Palm.
Mr. Quince is my favourite.
Yes.
Mr. Quince.
Yeah.
Mr. Quince is very popular.
Yes.
I'm not sure why.
He's the man.
He kind of, very even keel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are, and you remain an inspiration to us all. So it's wonderful to be here with you, and just thank you.
Oh, well, I was really touched by how much you actually mentioned Cider Chat in this book. I was kind of like floored, like I could not believe it. And your writing is so eloquent.
Oh, that's so nice.
I mean,
of you
it's
to
a really
say.
like descriptive,
Wow.
and I think that when people are looking for language around, folks are still looking for a language to talk about cider.
Yes.
And we're kind of daft a little bit around language, and versus, oh, it's good, oh, this is awesome, superb. But to really bring it further in, and that's where you bring us into the storytelling of the book. Though it's like a resource book too for each particular region.
I would really like it to be seen as that. I mean, I think having the chance to go visit places, and the value of this, the chance to experience it, and then you understand more.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fascinating, and the chance to meet the people. So I was really pleased to have the opportunity for every cider to say how people could go visit. Or if you can't go visit the place, what's the festival you'll find them at? So I really hope, someone said maybe it's like a little travel guide.
It is a little travel guide. I mean, if you're going out anywhere in the world and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to this part, into France or to the UK or to the US. I mean, you really did some like traveling here. But you kicked this book out pretty quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a really excellent challenge, really, because it was commissioned just maybe 14 months ago, and we had to deliver it by June or July. James has been amazing, helping me all the way. But so this, when we met you, it was before we'd even been to New England. And then after that, I had a chance to go to Normandy in Brittany, and then Asturias, and also the Basque region, and then a fleeting visit to Frankfurt, which was fun. Yeah.
For the World Cider, the Cider World.
Yeah. So obviously had to go and check out the cider pubs, which were amazing. So again, that's a lovely way for people. You could go do that sort of thing just over a few days, and you get to feel it all.
So what was your approach here? And you know, in writing this book, I want to write what? I mean, what was your inspiration?
They wanted like the best ciders from all over the world.
And when we say they
so the publisher. So Quadrille, it was really great to get the call.
I'm sure it was.
It's amazing. It's quite brave, because not many people are publishing. I think there's more in the States, which is brilliant. But in the UK, as you know, since Pete Brown and Bill Bradshaw's amazing book, World's Best Cider, and then also Bill did another one, The Haynes Guide to Cider, and then coincidentally, me and Gabe Cook last year with his amazing ciderology book, which is...
I have a copy of that too.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really fun.
It's just so useful and so entertaining, and it's just written in his tone. So when I was doing mine, I always think it's the people and what makes them tick that's fascinating, and then you understand how their cider is distinctive. So for me, it had to be a great cider, and I did have to, obviously, I couldn't include everyone, but a great cider, and then there was the story came too. So the cider would lead, or the perry.
Can we talk about that, a great cider? And I want to speak it from my own perspective, and being involved in cider for what seems like almost half my life now. But more recently, in doing the podcast, I've had the pleasure of meeting folks like yourself and other outstanding cider makers throughout the world. And so you have this experience where I'll have many ciders and I will not finish them. And then one will just boom, stop me. And oftentimes, it sometimes surprises me in the way that it just, I know, boom, that is an outstanding cider. And part of that is because it's balanced. There's a nose there, there's an aroma, there's a richness, it's lingering long after the cup is empty. So I'm wondering, for someone like yourself, and again, we know Susanna Forbes is this renowned writer, as Drink Britain and beer writer. You've been in the libation world for a long time. Has that approach to finding that outstanding cider changed for you more recently, or is this a path that you've been down for a while, saying, I know that's an outstanding cider. I could have told you that 5 years ago.
I think the opportunity to try more ciders does expand your horizons, but I think if you enjoy taste and flavour of any sort, whether it's food, whether it's flowers with the senses. We honed our palates on wine, and as you know, I was deputy director of a wine competition for many years. So just the chance, and it really is, the more practice, that's when you could find those adjectives. But the opportunity to sit down and give myself the time to really think, well, what is it? Are we sort of peach and apricot here, or are we more into kiwi and gooseberry fruit? And then it was a great opportunity. I mean, you enjoy a complex cider.
I was a lucky beneficiary of this book, because I got to taste all the ciders. I didn't have to do any of the work.
That's
Which is,
always a
really good, yeah.
lot of fun, being the mate of a good author
Yeah,
like
it's good.
that, no
It's
doubt.
great.
There's some fascinating ones out there. I mean, like some of the real surprises was Kistin. That was one made with chestnut,
Mm-hmm.
and that was fascinating. And then also some of the Quince ciders, actually. That won't surprise you, I know, but
No, but it is something. Let's just talk about that. So
Yeah.
Quince we're seeing this coming along more and more. So what we're
We are, yeah.
James
And
has got
even
a lot.
in the UK, we are.
even in the UK,
Yeah.
no doubt. Wow.
And there's about, I can think of 3 or 4 people, including us, who are experimenting with Quince. And I've got a lone battle with the authorities to try and get Quince put on the permitted list of cider ingredients.
Whoa.
Because currently it's not, so you pay a different level of tax if you use that.
Right.
If you use Quince in your cider. So you can still do it, but it's a tax thing. So we'll see how that goes.
So James has been doing some research, and obviously it's a palm fruit, as we know. But also you found some sort of historical mentions, didn't you?
Yeah, there's not many, but there
No.
are a few historical references to the use of Quince in making alcoholic beverages, not cider, obviously, because cider is made with apples, historically. But yeah, so there's a couple of things, yeah. So
Very exciting. Yeah. Well, Mr. Quince will be very happy to hear
Mr. Quince
that.
will be delighted.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, just on that Quince note, were you seeing that they were using a particular variety of Quince?
I don't know if that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah.
Because there was quite a few
There
varieties.
are different ones, aren't there? Yeah. So,
And maybe
so
people don't really have the choice. We just kind of use what we have.
yeah.
And primarily people are using it as like an infusion.
Well, it depends on who's doing it. So I think everyone I know has actually crushed the fruit and is fermenting it, but only one that I know of has done it as a single
Varietal cider,
variety,
yeah.
rather than a co-ferment. So we're co-fermenting with apple, but I think even that person will end up blending it. It's quite a dominant sort of flavour.
It is.
And the acids are really high, so you've got that kind of. So it'll be interesting. I think it'll be quite challenging, but quite cool to try to do that.
Yeah.
But we went with the co-ferment. So,
Okay.
so we were co-fermenting it with a variety called White Norman, which is not very common. It's not apple variety.
Yeah, White Norman, it's another new apple to us. So last year's harvest, we were lucky enough to be choosing fruit from a few other orchards, just growing a little bit. So we ended up selecting fruit from a very historic estate just near us called Netherwood Estate, the seat of the Darnley family, and that Darnley family goes back to, I don't know, Mary Queen of Scots or that sort of thing.
Wow.
So, but lovely trees. They were 60 to 70 years old. They have sheep on them during the year sometimes, but they're not overmanaged. But this lovely variety called White Norman, which was new to us. And then our friends Albert and Mike at Ross on Wye Cider, they helped us. As you can imagine, they kind of have some of the knowledge, and we looked it up. And so that's going to be new for us. Is it? We've got a barrel or something, or
We've got it in quite a few different blends. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's cool.
So when you come and
it's
visit,
kind of a pretty delicate, soft tannins.
yes,
A lot of experimenting.
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I wish you could have tried Randall Graham's query, which is pear, quince, and apple. And there aren't any more bottles. I mean, you might find them, at some backwoods, package store or something.
Has he stopped making it?
He has stopped, but I had the privilege of being able to go to the holiday dinner party in California that he had. He brought out all these from his cellar, all these Rieslings,
Oh, wow.
and we were at an Indian restaurant, and so we had Rieslings just galore from all these different years and stuff. And then he brought out from I want to say it was 1985 up to present, his kind of renowned wine, the cigar.
Yeah.
just, that was crazy. So, but anyways, he is planting some apples in this kind of almost like a research, his new project, Pompelechaume, which is outside of Santa Cruz in San Batista, and there is a cider apple plot. That query was very exciting because the quince in it was just so subtle.
Yes.
He made that by macerating the quince in fermenting liquid, if I remember right.
Yeah. I had him on the podcast talking about it. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
He's very inventive, and I think that's another thing that you must be finding. It is wonderful, people coming at cider from sometimes a different angle. Sometimes the winemakers are coming in. I found that a fair bit in Australia, which is great. People who've really made lovely wines, but then they're suddenly seeing the potential, and that's what sort of comes through to me. I think the apple's potential is still unrealized. I think we're kind of beginning.
Absolutely.
So it's a fascinating time, and James has been, for the last year, he's been chair of the Three Counties Cider and Perry Association. So again, that's enabled us to kind of see what's happening, and there's small scale new producers coming along. I was just thinking, Artist Straw, and then Russell's, Innocent Pilgrim, so there's small scale, and then there's larger outfits beginning to get involved. So the scene is evolving and changing. We still need to, I've started a new sort of hashtag with my friend Jane Payton, who's also School of Booze on Twitter, which is Rethink Cider. And we need to do that in the UK. And you've got your wonderful Cider Going Up campaign, which we think is just what we all need. We need to get people to think differently.
Yeah. What I've found is, you have these fruit ciders, and I've been going all over the map on this a little bit, becoming a little bit of a cider snob. I will admit to that, though I try to stay positive because I can't help but be positive. But what I've found, that the fruit ciders that really excite me are the ones where on the same plot of land you're getting that same fruit into the apple. And a great example of that was SoCal Cider out in California, where this amazing persimmon orchard, which I never experienced at that level. I mean, I've seen persimmons, here or there, but just to have all these persimmons right next to this apple orchard. So when you're tasting the cider that Laura Everett makes, it's a perfect match. It makes sense to use that fruit from there. So if you have a quince on your property, or so it's just, they're connected. They're kind of like connected, these sentient beings in a way, I think, and that we don't even realize it.
I listened to that one. I was quite jealous. Tasting persimmon cider. It sounds great.
I know. It blew me away, because I have to admit, I was a little like, I don't know.
Yes.
Persimmon cider, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yes.
But it was one of those moments where I just happened to bring it along on a Sunset Cider Club night, cracked it open, and it just filled the room.
Great.
Really?
Wow.
And, it's like folks who didn't drink cider were there too, and they're like, they noticed that. And then I tasted it, I was just like, wanting to squirrel it away. Goodbye, everybody. I'll go to my closet.
That's another sign of a good cider.
I know. It is.
Squirreling away.
I'll see you later. And so the Cider and Cider that you just wrote, The Essential Guide to 100 Craft Ciders to Drink Now.
Actually, North America makes up nearly a quarter of the book. When you put Canada and the USA together, and that's because there's so much good stuff happening here. It is so inspiring. There's terroir. There's such respect for orchardists. We found that more and more, and it's wonderful. I think that's one of the things we want to take away, because back where we are, there'll be farmers who've been looking after the orchards for generations, but are they getting the credit? Are we saying, we're partnering with so-and-so? I mean, we try to do it, don't we? It's kind of, Grove Orchard or whatever, but I think that's one of the elements. But also, the playfulness with flavours here. As you say, we might not all like all of them, and they might all, but on the other hand, when it's well made and when we can still, I always want to taste the apple. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I really want to recommend people getting this book. It's a perfect size to put in your pack, to take it along on a trip. It's just absolutely delightful. This is something that I actually keep by my bed.
Oh,
I kid you not. So it's there, and I kind of pick it up and I read it, and I could hear your voice in it, and I love it. I really love it. I think you're an amazing writer, and we're all the better for it. Thank you for that.
So kind of you. Can we interest you?
Yeah, let's see what did you bring here?
James, you can.
Well, we brought you something that's on the market now called Hazy Ways Part 1. And talking about orchards, and it's kind of what we try and do. We're trying to express the orchard, basically, the fruit that comes off it every vintage. And this was just another kind of attempt to do that in a slightly different way. So this is 91% Dabinet. There's a 9% Ellis Bitter in there. And what we're trying to do is really, Dabinet's a great apple. When you taste it right Dabinet from a tree, it's a fantastic experience. It's really deep and complex and spicy and peachy, and tannins are it's a lot of tannin. And we wanted to capture that, try and capture that experience of tasting fresh apples from a tree in a fermented liquid, which is quite hard. Sorry, I'm going to shake it to wake it, actually.
I think it's
So
kind of
right
neat.
now, James has just flipped it upside down.
Just there's a little bit of sediment at the bottom, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of flavour in there, and I kind of like to distribute it throughout the bottom
Wonderful,
before we open it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So the technique we used was very unglamorous. They call it cold racking in the UK. We kind of did warm racking actually, but it's where you rack the liquid off the lees to try and slow the fermentation. And so we did that 6 times.
6 times.
Which is pretty risky. And the final time was into bottle, so it could finish fermenting in bottle. And hopefully stop before all the sweetness had been consumed. And it kind of
Orangey.
worked.
Wow. Look at that. Look at that.
So cheers.
Cheers.
Wassail.
Yes.
Wassail.
Wassail. Wow.
So there you go. So we kind of have achieved most of what we set out to, because it's really juicy still.
Really, yeah, really juicy, nice complexity to the cider. That's that residual like sweetness there. It's balancing. It's yeah, lovely. And I want to talk about the color here too.
Yes, colour's
I mean,
beautiful,
the
isn't it?
color is
Yeah.
crazy. It's orangey, like apricot.
Yeah.
Gold.
Yeah.
Flecks of gold. I think because of the high levels of tannins, I think that's what kind of,
Just dabbing it from our orchard always comes out that colour. It's weird.
yeah.
Kind of vibrant orangey colour.
And this is 7.4% alcohol by volume.
Yeah, so it's not fully fermented, but it's gone a long way through the ferment. So it tastes like it's a finished cider.
It's really
but
fun.
we kept the sweetness, a little bit of that sweetness.
And drying, you know.
Yes. The texture, isn't it? You're
It's
getting partly
rich.
from the tannins, but also partly from the fine sparkle, which is what I love with bottle conditioned cider or champagne methods like this.
How did you work the Dabinet? Like, and these are from your orchard?
Yeah, I mean, we picked them a mixture of from the tree and shaking them onto tarpaulins. And we almost always age the late harvest bittersweet fruit like this for several weeks before we press it. But we actually pressed it and milled it straight away. We milled it and pressed it straight away. We didn't keep the pulp any time. So, and then it was just it's kind of intuitive side. We're just watching the fermentation and seeing what was happening. So if it was the first racking was about halfway through the process, and then after that we watched it pretty carefully. So it was going too fast. We decided to rack.
And you did it 5 times. You racked
5 times, and then the 6th into bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It was going so, and we decided whether to rack it in the presence of oxygen or whether to do it under CO2. So depending on what was happening. So we just kind of nursed it along just by watching what it was doing and smelling it and tasting it.
Now that's unusual for a commercial cider maker to be racking so much. That's, I mean, as someone who does it at home, I do that all the time. For you to do that commercially, what kind of volume were you working
We
with?
only made like 800.
Only 800?
850 bottles, yes. It wasn't
Okay,
much.
well, that's still quite a bit in my mind. You know.
I think if we had more space and bigger fermentation vessels, we could have made more.
Yeah, it's a really exquisite cider. It's like a fun cider to drink because this color is dreamy. You're feeling like it's kind of whimsical, a little bit like Little Pomona. Can you give us like a little snapshot of what's going on with Little Pomona? I mean, you are like this boutique cidery, and which is a nice position to be in. It allows you to experiment, to do something like this amazing cider that we're drinking right now. I mean, I don't think I've really had a Daminet like this. It's quite unique.
Well, it's going to be an exciting year. We will be releasing our first Perry, which is going to be coming along, isn't it? We've been kind of nurturing that one. Yeah, February. So.
What's your blend of Perry pears? Or
It's
is your
mainly a
blend?
variety called Butt.
Butt.
B-U-T-T.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And believe me, we've been through every butt joke.
But a
Possible,
a bud classically is like a vessel.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yes,
I'm wondering.
I don't know why it's called butt actually.
No.
Yeah, that's unusual.
It's a
Maybe
really,
that.
it's a very late harvest berry pear.
It's got wonderful green acids.
Hmm.
It's got really.
A lot of tannin as well.
Yeah,
So,
and so we've got
so
that.
that's a-
Is that with?
And so it's like 80% butt, 14% old field, and butt's also really, really slow to start fermenting. So after like 2-3 weeks, this thing's just sitting there not doing anything. So I added some fermenting apples, Foxwell,
Oh,
into it, and then started.
Kicked it up.
Foxwell just ferment.
Kicked
wants
it
to
up.
Ferment, so,
but the old field is a very popular
Yes.
Perry pear in
Yeah.
certainly in the
Yeah.
UK. It's a. Would
It
you
is, isn't it?
would you say that it's often used as a predominant base for Perry, or there is nothing predominant? It's all depends.
There isn't that much predominant. There isn't that much perry being made. That's the truth of it.
Really, in the
Yeah,
UK?
There's not that much of it. So, and it's hard
I don't want to hear that.
No.
I know.
No.
I know. Well,
And
Seriously.
it's hard to make and it's hard to sell. So that's the thing.
Why is that?
Why is it hard to make? Pears are really fickle.
Well,
as you
yeah,
know.
I get that. Yeah, they're very persnickety. They go on their
Yeah.
own path.
They do, yeah.
But why is it hard to sell? Don't folks realize it's like
I think you're right. They
I think-
don't realise.
they don't realize how
Exactly.
delicate it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And
exactly right.
Yes, and they don't. Also, they don't realise the care that has to go into it, the extra care.
unbelievable.
But it can be so sublime that we'd urge everyone to go try it. I would say that actually some of our first light bulb cider and perry experiences was, for example, when we tried Eric Bordelay's Poiré. And that can happen for a lot of people. They kind of shift their perception. Actually, they're also food friendly, but in a different way. So I think Perry, we absolutely want to kind of reinvigorate that. So we're keeping going with a wonderful old orchard called Tawny's.
Tony's farm, yeah.
Historic 200-300-year-old trees. You just love it in there.
Wow.
I mean, they are absolutely huge. It's great. So that's wonderful. But the main thing that's going to happen for us this year is, fingers crossed, we'll be building a new cidery so that we can expand a little bit on a nearby farm. So that's
wow.
Yeah. So
That's
fingers
huge.
crossed. We will have in there a little event space, a little tasting room, and the great thing is that the farm we're going to be moving to, they're lovely and they're really supportive. They're going to be helping us, but we will overlook a small orchard of theirs. So that means that people can come and see us, just as you do in a winery. You're right by it. So
Perfect.
we'll be able to, and we're working with ecological consultants, so we'll have little paths all the way through, but people can kind of experience.
And the two of you, both of you, with your experience of such a diversity of libation, you're really offering all of us a unique experience to not just be one-dimensional in cider. So here's a perfect example of rethinking cider, even though, I'm not sure what you mean by rethinking cider. Maybe we should clarify that too.
Yeah. What I think is that in the UK particularly, people have simply got used to cider being purely the refreshment drink that you consume in large quantities, in pints or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. There is nothing nicer or better.
Yeah.
But there is also a chance to cherish the more complex ciders that speak more of the orchard. And if we're going to get a revival in cider, then we have to kind of understand it more. We have to realise it does have a place on the dining room table, along with food. So there is more to it. So that's where I think rethinking cider.
So in this past year, since I saw you last year in Baltimore and now, what has changed on the forefront in the UK? What are you seeing there? Is there momentum for people to wanting to get more involved in cider, or is it kind of at that same place? Or
Definitely lots of new and younger people coming in to cider, and trying to make cider from fruit, from apples, or which is very fashionable among some producers around the world and in the UK. So I think that's really exciting. So,
There's also new ways of appreciating it, isn't it? Like the cider salon, our first one. So a little bit different, I think, to the ones here, but the same ultimate objective, which is sharing cider. So we had the first one in June, and that was Tom Oliver and Martin Barkley of Pilton Cider, their idea, along with Felix of Fine Cider. So that was a good start there. There's a couple of moves to pinpoint or to highlight juice content or cider juice content. There's a new campaign called Cider is Wine, which is actually, I don't know if it's a campaign, it's more of an alliance that several producers have got involved with. So there's different elements, along with hopefully some new producers coming along and some new fans. So there's one person called Dick, what's his surname again?
Oh, on Twitter.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh, I love this guy.
Yes.
I want to get his correct name here because
please do.
he's an avid
He's
cider person.
Yes.
He's a force of nature. It's brilliant.
Absolutely wonderful, and he has kind of transformed Manchester in one fell swoop by simply, if you like, sharing with different places the opportunities that they can have with good cider. He's done a cider map. I cannot wait. I'm going to be going to Manchester soon. And his partner, Kath, she's halfway along to becoming a sommelier.
Oh, what a delight to sit down and have a chat with Susanna and James Forbes of Little Pomona, based in the UK. Now, let me catch you up with a couple of things we were talking about here as we were kind of flying by in this conversation. and the audio is going in and out, of course. One of my low-tech things here, but I would think we'll make do. One person that we were just talking about on Twitter. This fellow is very active on Twitter. He's based in the UK, in Manchester. He has a map that Susanna is going to be checking out of all the cider spots there that he's recommending. Super positive. Highly recommend that you also follow him. And that would be on Twitter at Ashton. That's ASHTON 1848. I'll put a link in the show notes to this episode 181 so you can find his Twitter feed. You also want to be going to the show notes to just see how to enter into this free giveaway for a signed copy of Susanna's new book, The Cider Insider, The Essential Guide to 100 Craft Ciders to Drink Now. So if you go to the show notes, right on the top there, it tells you exactly what to do to enter into this giveaway. But just to remind you now, all you need to do is follow at Cider Chat and at Drink Britain, because we are tweeting between May 22nd and the 28th the following tweet. It will always say hashtag retweet and then hashtag the Cider Insider and then some kind of joyful thing about the book. You just retweet that and then your name will get put in the hat, and then Susanna will be picking a random winner to receive a free copy of her book that she's going to sign. So that's really neat. Again, just go to the show notes for this here episode 181. Backing up a little bit further, we were talking about Randall Graham of Bonnie Doon Vineyard. There's going to be an upcoming conversation with Randall. I recorded a visit with him at Population, which is out in California. Very famous cider maker. He's a guy who hooked me up to Eric Bordelais, gave me that inside password to get to meet Eric and slowly create a relationship there. I mentioned the holiday party. I want to give a little shout out to Nicole Todd of Santa Cruz Cider Company. I got to go to that Bonnie Doon Vineyard holiday party last December because Nicole Todd invited me to go. And so I was her significant other because her husband wasn't available. And if it wasn't for that, I just wouldn't have had that exquisite experience of having Riesling, all these crazy Rieslings at an Indian restaurant. Absolutely amazing. And then that in turn informed me when I had the Monterey Bay Cider Tour. I thought, well, what kind of food can I serve the folks on the tour? And I thought Indian food, because Riesling is so much like a cider in a lot of ways, that kind of white wine, that acidity that you want to kind of cut through certain flavors and also meld with it. So that was a really great time there. And again, stay tuned for that conversation with Randall Graham. And then backing up just a little bit into this conversation, we were talking about the perry that they're working with, and they're using the pear called Butt. That's B-U-T-T. And I kind of cut this out because it was just a little bit too quiet to share with you. But James was talking about how that particular pear is, like all perry pears, kind of persnickety. We know that about them. Shh, perry pear is probably listening to us right now. But anyways, you pick it like late in the season, let it sit over a year, press it, and then you wait a year to drink it. So quite a process there. It's very exciting that they're now they have that perry coming out. And I also know that as I was just writing recently with Susanna, they are breaking ground for a tasting room and that new expansion for their cidery. So there's good news coming forward for Little Pomona. A lot there. Again, I want to remind you, if you want to get a free copy of Susanna Forbes' book, just keep an eye out between the launch of this here episode 181 from May 22nd to the 28th, 2019. We're going to be putting out on Twitter the hashtag The Cider Insider, hashtag retweet it. You're good to go. Your name's in the hat, and you just might be getting a signed copy of this fantastic book. Cheers to all those folks out in the UK. So many to mention, so much in this conversation, and I look forward to the next time to see these two and hear more about their tales out and about in Ciderville.
There is a reason why we do it like this. There is a reason why we do it like this. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Yes, there is a reason.
Well, once again, you have some homework, Ciderville, as we say goodbye and slowly fade out for this episode 181. And that is to follow on Twitter at CiderChat and at Drink Britain so you can get in on that cider book giveaway. Susanna Forbes' new book, The Cider Insider, The Essential Guide to 100 Craft Ciders to Drink Now. Find the details to this here Twitter giveaway at this episode show notes 181. And like Al said, get out a Beak Eraser and clear that week off the last week of September and come along with me to Normandy, France. Go to the Totally Cider page at ciderchat.com. This is Rhea Windcaller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
We like cider. We like palms. We love orchards and having fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Yes, there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh, yes, there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Yes, there is a reason why we do it like this. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the street, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. We like cider. We like palms. We like orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes, there is. There's a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes, there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Yes, there is. There is a reason. We like walking down the orchards, dancing in the street, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Oh yes, we do. We like palms. Oh yes, we do. We love orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. There is a reason why we do it like this. Walking down the orchards, dancing in the street, staring all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. We like palms. Oh yes we do. We like orchards, having some fun.
Yeehaw!